In the humid darkness of a Philippine jungle training ground, an elite foreign team stood confident behind thermal optics and night vision, believing nothing could slip past them. Then, a Filipino operator appeared like a ghost. He was close enough to whisper a sentence that froze the blood in their veins. "You're already gone." 3 meters. That's all the distance there was between total certainty and absolute humiliation. Moments like this are not movie fantasy. They are the quiet reality behind why the Philippine Armed Forces stand out in Asia. What happened next didn't just surprise visiting soldiers, it rewrote everything they thought warfare meant. This is not a story about the biggest defense budget or the most advanced missiles. It's not about parades of steel or headlines of power. This is a story about something harder to measure: adaptation, survival, and warriors shaped by terrain and history. The Philippines is an archipelago of jungles, mountains, coastlines, and crowded cities. Its forces do not train in one environment, they train in all of them. And because of that, the Philippine military has developed a kind of battlefield instinct that many larger armies only study. In early 2000s, a joint exercise was arranged in the southern islands. Foreign advisors arrived expecting to teach doctrine, technology, and modern coordination. They had radios that could reach satellites, drones that could see through canopy, and weapons calibrated to perfection. The Filipino unit waiting for them looked simpler: worn uniforms, old rifles, faces calm, unreadable. The visitors thought they were about to demonstrate superiority. They didn't realize they were about to enter a landscape where equipment mattered less than understanding, and where the Philippine soldier's greatest weapon was belonging. The first thing that makes Philippine forces stand out is geography. Most Asian armies train around borders, deserts, plains, or cold mountains. Filipino troops train in an environment that is constantly shifting: jungle heat, typhoon rain, island crossings, and urban density. The jungle is not an occasional deployment zone, it is home. The sea is not an obstacle, it is the road between provinces. This creates soldiers who don't just operate in difficult terrain, they live inside it, move with it, and read it like language. Lieutenant Miguel Santos of the Naval Special Operations Group once explained it simply: other armies prepare to enter the jungle, we prepare to disappear inside it. His unit had spent months tracking insurgents through thick vegetation where visibility was measured in meters. They learned to step without sound, to breathe without panic, to notice the absence of birdsong as a warning. These were not skills taught in air-conditioned classrooms. They were carved into muscle memory by years of operating in real conditions where mistakes were not theoretical. During the exercise, the foreign team moved with textbook precision: spacing, hand signals, security halts. They were perfect. And they were slow. The jungle punished every step. Vines grabbed gear. Heat suffocated lungs. The canopy blocked GPS signals. After hours of effort, they covered only a few kilometers. Meanwhile, the Filipino unit had vanished within minutes. The command post lost contact. The visitors assumed malfunction. The Filipino liaison only smiled. "No malfunction," he said softly. "You will see them when they choose." That is the second thing that sets Philippine forces apart: the culture of stealth and patience. Many armies value speed and overwhelming force. Filipino special units value silence, endurance, and presence without detection. In counterinsurgency operations, patience is survival. You wait, you listen, you become part of the terrain. The Philippine soldier is trained not to dominate the environment, but to blend into it. In jungles, dominance makes noise. Noise gets you killed. Silence is the currency of victory. That night, the foreign team established a secure perimeter. Thermal imaging scanned the darkness. Night vision turned shadows into green clarity. Sensors listened for movement. They believed themselves untouchable. Around 2 in the morning, one sentry noticed something. Not movement, more like the suggestion of movement. He reached for his radio. Before he could speak, warm breath touched his neck. A voice whispered in perfect English, "Your perimeter is already broken." He spun, heart pounding. A Filipino operator stood less than a meter away, calm as rain. The foreign commander ordered a full sweep. Thermal showed nothing. Night vision saw only jungle. The Filipino had disappeared as if the earth swallowed him. That moment carried a lesson deeper than embarrassment. Technology does not replace understanding. Philippine forces have learned to operate when radios fail, when satellites are blind, when batteries die. They have learned to trust senses sharpened by necessity. In an era where many armies depend on electronics, the Filipino soldier remains dangerous, even stripped down to basics. The third thing that makes Philippine forces stand out is their hybrid identity, modern soldiers carrying indigenous knowledge. Filipino operators know which plants conceal tracks, which insects signal water nearby, which bird calls change when humans approach. This is not superstition, it is environmental intelligence passed through generations and refined through combat. The Philippines has fought wars in jungles since before modern armies existed. That memory lives in training. A soldier who reads the jungle does not fear losing GPS. The jungle itself becomes the map. By sunrise, the foreign commander requested something rare: permission to learn. Not to instruct, to learn. He admitted the Philippine unit understood this terrain in ways doctrine could not capture. The mission parameters changed. What was supposed to be a demonstration became an education. Hours later, the foreign team finally reached the objective, exhausted but proud. They believed they were ahead of schedule. Then they saw the Filipino unit already waiting. Shelters built from natural materials invisible from a few meters away. Water collected, food prepared, defensive positions perfect. The Filipino lieutenant approached with quiet respect. There was no arrogance, no triumph, only professionalism. "This is our home," he said. "You fight the jungle, we become part of it." That philosophy is the fourth distinction. Philippine forces are shaped by survival mentality. Many armies train for war as an event. Philippine soldiers train for war as a condition. In regions where insurgency, disaster response, and maritime security overlap, the soldier is not only a fighter, but a survivor, a rescuer, a protector. And this leads to another unique strength: versatility. The Philippine military is constantly balancing multiple missions: counter-terrorism in Mindanao, disaster relief after typhoons, maritime patrols in contested waters, urban security in crowded cities. Few Asian armies face such a spectrum simultaneously. Filipino troops are forced to adapt quickly. 1 month jungle pursuit, next month humanitarian evacuation. This produces a kind of operational flexibility that cannot be manufactured by budget alone. It is forged by reality. In the weeks that followed, Filipino instructors demonstrated movement techniques that seemed impossible. They didn't push vegetation aside, they flowed through it. They placed feet where sound disappeared. They paused when insects paused. They understood the jungle's rhythm. The foreign soldiers tried and failed, snapping branches, catching vines, breathing hard. The Filipino instructor shook his head gently. "You move like visitors," he said. "You must move like you belong."
That sentence carried the weight of centuries.
Another factor that makes Philippine forces stand out is their emphasis on small unit initiative. In complex terrain, junior leaders must make decisions without waiting for distant command. Filipino units often operate in dispersed environments where communication can vanish. This requires trust in the individual operator. Filipino soldiers are trained to think independently, improvise, and survive. In many larger armies, rigid hierarchy slows response. In the Philippine environment, hesitation is fatal. Adaptation becomes doctrine.
This is also why Philippine forces are respected in joint training. Foreign militaries arrive with advanced systems, but they often leave impressed by Filipino fieldcraft. The Philippines may not have the largest arsenal, but it has something rarer. Soldiers who can make little become enough. Bamboo becomes container, trap becomes meal, mud becomes camouflage. The Philippine operator understands that warfare is not always fought with abundance. Sometimes it is fought with what you can carry and what you can find. The Philippine military's history adds another layer. Filipino soldiers carry the memory of resisting invaders, fighting insurgencies, and protecting islands across decades. World War II left scars and lessons. Guerrilla warfare shaped identity. Modern counter-terror operations sharpen skills. The soldier is not detached from history. He is part of a continuing narrative of defense. That continuity creates a culture of resilience. Philippine forces stand out because their story is not theoretical, it is lived.
Then there is the maritime dimension. As an archipelago, the Philippines lives at sea. Its forces understand amphibious movement, coastal security, and island logistics. Few Asian armies operate across thousands of islands. Filipino Marines and naval special operators train in environments where land and water blend. They learn to fight in mangroves, board vessels, and move between shores. This creates a unique operational identity, soldiers who are equally at home in jungle shadows and ocean spray. In one exercise, a Japanese observer watched Filipino troops navigate a dense forest without compasses. They read tree lean, moss growth, water flow. The observer later admitted quietly, "This is environmental mastery." That is why Philippine forces draw respect beyond their size. They represent a kind of specialization, mastery of tropical warfare. In Asia, where climates vary widely, tropical expertise is rare and valuable. Philippine units are among the best in the world at it because they are born from it.
But perhaps the most important distinction is mindset. Filipino soldiers often speak of brotherhood. They train not to prove superiority, but to ensure survival together. When foreign commanders thanked Filipino instructors, the response was simple: "If you are stronger, we are safer." That humility is powerful. Many armies are driven by ego, competition, image. Philippine forces are driven by necessity and cooperation. In war, ego is a weakness. Humility is awareness. Awareness is survival.
This is why Philippine forces stand out in human interest terms. Their story is not one of limitless resources. It is one of making the most of limited means. It is the story of warriors who understand environment, culture, and community. In disaster zones, Filipino soldiers are often first responders. In remote villages, they are protectors. They are woven into civilian life in ways many armies are not. The soldier is not distant. He is neighbor, brother, son. Over time, foreign militaries began revising training based on Filipino techniques. Jungle warfare schools incorporated lessons from Philippine instructors. Joint exercises became coveted assignments. The students became teachers. This is a remarkable reversal in global military dynamics.
The world's most powerful forces learning from one of the smallest budgets. It proves a truth that the Philippine experience embodies. Elite is not about equipment. Elite is about adaptation, about understanding, about belonging.
In Asian military comparisons, numbers often dominate discussion. Troop counts, aircraft, ships. But Philippine forces remind analysts that terrain shapes capability. A soldier trained in jungles will outperform a soldier trained only in open plains when the battlefield changes. The Philippines is a laboratory of complex warfare environments. Its forces have learned through necessity what others learn through simulation. That gives them an edge that is difficult to quantify, but impossible to ignore. And there is also courage born from constant exposure. Philippine troops have operated against insurgent groups in some of the harshest conditions. They have faced ambushes in mountains, raids in dense jungle, terror threats in cities. Their experience is not occasional, it is continuous. That continuity creates hardened professionalism. It also creates empathy. Filipino soldiers understand the communities they protect. They know the cost of conflict, not as abstraction, but as daily reality. In the fictional story of Lieutenant Santos, years later he stood before a new group of foreign trainees. He watched their expensive gear, their confidence, their belief that technology was dominance. He didn't mock them. He remembered the night someone whispered, "You're dead," to teach humility. He began the lesson not with tactics, but with philosophy. "The jungle does not care who you are," he said. "It cares only whether you understand it." That is the Philippine military's gift to Asia. Understanding. Understanding that war is not fought in laboratories, but in mud, heat, fear, and silence. Understanding that survival is not guaranteed by equipment. Understanding that local knowledge is not primitive, but sophisticated. Philippine forces stand out because they carry a relationship with terrain and history that cannot be purchased. It must be lived. The Philippine soldier is often underestimated because he does not always wear the newest systems, but those who train beside him learn quickly. They learn that invisibility is not magic, it is discipline. They learn that endurance is not bravado, it is necessity. They learn that humility is not weakness, it is strength. Philippine forces stand out because they represent a kind of warrior forged not by abundance, but by challenge. In Asia's evolving security landscape, this matters. Conflicts may arise in jungles, islands, coastlines, and urban chaos. The Philippine Armed Forces are uniquely positioned because they have already lived these complexities. Their operators are specialists in environments others avoid. Their resilience is cultural. Their adaptability is doctrinal. Their story is human. And so, when analysts ask why Philippine forces command respect, the answer is not simple, it is layered. Geography, history, survival mentality, versatility, environmental mastery, brotherhood. The Philippines teaches the world that elite does not always look like perfection. Sometimes elite looks like worn boots moving silently through jungle darkness, guided not by satellites, but by instinct sharpened over generations. Somewhere tonight, deep in the Philippine jungle, operators are training again, moving through vegetation without sound, becoming part of the ecosystem, preparing not for spectacle, but for reality. And when the next foreign unit arrives, confident in technology, they will arrive as students, whether they know it or not. Because in the jungle, the quietest warrior is the most dangerous. And in Asia, the Philippine forces stand out not because they shout power, but because they embody it in silence.